And we're live. Welcome to the stream, guys. Tonight we're gonna have another test race for the Viper Niza Motul 12 Hours of Spa coming up in 1 week. So in the studio we have Max and Javier. Hi, guys.
Hello.
Hello guys.
So yeah, this time around we've got a few more drivers coming in to the races. I see Francis Metrillo out there. We did see briefly another driver there, Aldo Balagulan, who is going to be out there on track. So it's nice to see that some of our guys from the Philippines are coming through. There you can actually see Aldo in the Corvette, the new mid-engine Corvette that's in the GT11 in American parlance. Otherwise known as the GTE cars. So the GTE cars are, it looks to be like it's going to be a duel between the Corvette and the Porsche. So that's going to be quite interesting.
Yeah. So we have quite a few guys in the server right now, around 11, 12, 13, 14. 18, I guess. Yeah. So thanks for joining this session. We'll be starting off the team testing very soon after this. We're going to close the registration very soon also, but please do ask your friends to join the event. It's not that expensive. I don't know. No, it's quite cheap to enter also. Yeah, 30 bucks.
$30 there,
Yeah.
I think, I do believe is the cost of entry. And we're getting quite a lot of interest as well from a lot of other teams coming in as well. So hopefully we'll see quite a few cars out there on track. But there is still plenty of slots left on the grid. So for all of you guys who have an iRacing account, do head on down there. The main class denominations are you have the GTE cars, aka GTLM cars, where you need, well, any driver who has an iRating above 2.5k will have to drive in a team with those GTE cars, whereas the GT3 cars are open to everyone else. So that's going to be quite an interesting little class dynamic there. So far, Class 1's quickest lap time there, 2:14.554, whereas Class 2 is
Whoa.
running around at 2:14.448 for a Class 1 car there. That's Lance Gumbala in first place in the Corvette. And I think the Corvette might have a decent
Oh, just beaten by Shami Azri.
Ooh, the times are coming down really fast right now. And meanwhile, yes, Class 1 is at 213.207 right now, whereas Class 2 at 217.145. So there is a fair old gap between the quick Class 1 cars and the slightly slower Class 2 cars or GT3 cars there.
Yeah, the GT3 is currently led by Muhammad Iman Danish. I think the youngest of this lineup today.
Indeed, I believe he's 15 or 16 years of age. I could be wrong there, but
Yeah, I think 16 by this year. Yep.
yeah, 16. That'll be about right. But yes, the 16-year-old definitely got a lot of talent and quite a big future in sim racing, and who knows, maybe a little bit of a future in real life racing as well. He's actually done quite well in testing for the MSF Championship, so it'll be interesting to see if he can make his debut there. Meanwhile, we're looking at Afi Fadlan, aka Afar, racing around the track there in the number 96 Ferrari. Looking very sleek as well, and a lot of the drivers are reporting that this might be the car to look out for in GT3 right now. It's definitely a toss-up in the GT3, in the Class 2 battle between the Porsche and the Ferrari, just as it would be. But I see a couple of really quick cars there. Shahril Nurfuddin in the Porsche and Movidijit Singh in the BMW as well, just sneaking up through the field there. So now qualifying has finished, and we're going to head on down to the race right now. Shami Azri's on pole position there with Lance Gabala in second, Aldo Ray Balagulan in third, Mohammed Mohaimin in fourth, and Francis Metrillo in fifth. That's your top five in Class 1, whereas Mohammed Iman Danish in first place there in the Class 2 category, Taufik Moihin in second, Shami Aizan in third, Afik in fourth place there, and Shahril Nurifuddin in fifth positions. So it'll be interesting to see. Again, this is a sprint race test, so the drivers will start the race as per usual, but it really is just a chance to try and see what the relative pace is going to be throughout the course of the race.
Yeah, Javier, how are you doing today?
Oh, man. Sorry guys, I was muted. I was actually talking and nobody was responding. Okay, I don't talk then. So no, I was just saying I was actually asking Max. So for those who maybe cannot really tell much of a difference between a GT3 and a GTE. So we see a 3 or 4 second difference, but based on a GT3, which is what most people might know. What would be a GT? How would we explain this out? What would be the main differences?
Well, the main differences in specification as well as a general freedom in the regulations. So in GT3, the engine type has to be the same, very limited modifications, and the aerodynamics, even though they're quite good on a GT3 car, they're still very, very limited. Whereas with the GTE cars, the Le Mans cars, they have a lot more freedoms. For instance, this Porsche 911 RSR here, the engine is no longer in the rear of the car like most 911s. It's actually ahead of the rear wheels. So technically, by FIA definitions, that still makes it a rear engine car. So is the Corvette, incidentally. It's considered a rear engine car. There's rear and front engines. So there's a lot of freedoms there, and a lot more downforce as well for these guys, and generally a more advanced suspension setup as well.
So what in between brands? Is there any type of generic regulation for all of them when they compete, or can they, every brand in the garage can actually have different setups for aerodynamics or whatever metrics they use to check that they're the same lap?
Yeah, basically this came from the era of the GT1 cars. So
Lance,
as we can see, a couple of big accidents there. Lance Gambala there, he's out.
He's out.
For a day as well. So that was a big accident there. I thought I saw a spinner there, but it looks like these guys are doing a-okay there. But that looks like all three of the Corvettes are out. Lance Gambala, Aldo Balagulan, and Francis Petrillo are all in the pit.
Man. This is like the Hitman episode when I gonna temper with the racing car,
Oh no!
Oh my god! Wow, that's unfortunate. If we can see what happened there, because that was a top race, isn't it?
Absolutely, coming down into the final corner before the start of the race, I believe, and they were lined up just fine. But I think they wanted to try and get an early jump on the field. Shami there, getting hard on the throttle. One Corvette goes out. There's a spinner there, and he manages to roll the car. Meanwhile, the two Corvettes further up the field, they're going to go side by side through Eau Rouge.
They took it at each other out. Oh no!
Okay, that
was something.
I don't know what to say.
Hopefully, they'll be able to patch the cars out and see what they can do out on track at the end there. But that was interesting.
Okay.
Very puzzling incident
so
there.
Coming back to the topic, we can say the GTs would have more aerodynamic force, I guess. What about the power of the car? Would it be slightly on top or any other differences?
Well, the main differences in the engines themselves. They don't tend to make that much more horsepower. 20 or 30% is usually the number thrown around, but because of BOP, that can vary quite wildly. GT cars, incidentally, they didn't used to be under BOP. They were under a formula regulation where the engine capacity and whether it's turbocharged or not would dictate what regulation subcategory it would be under. It was very, very complicated, so they moved towards a BOP system now, which is a lot easier to try and keep the cars on the same pairing. But effectively, what you have in these cars are full race engines. So they have different cylinder heads, different cylinder blocks. These engines are very, very different to what the road car would have. Whereas in the GT3 car, the engines are definitely just warmed over road car engines. So the cylinder head has to be the same, the block has to be the same. Most of the major components in the GT3 car have to be the same. But in GTE, it's a lot more freedoms, and it's also a concept. It's also almost a different concept when it comes to racing. Even though gentleman drivers do race at Le Mans with the GT cars, the GTE cars are really developed and built to be raced by pro-level drivers, whereas the GT3 car is more geared towards the gentleman driver market. Most of the series the GT3 competes in requires you to have at least one gentleman driver in the seat, so or in the team in the endurance events. So that's basically the difference.
That's interesting, because I would think I was thinking perhaps it would be slightly more tricky to actually drive the GT3 as compared to the GT, considering you don't have the aerodynamics.
Yeah,
Or is it opposite to that?
it is actually true. It's the way that these two series diverge has been quite interesting. GTE category used to be called actually GT2, and this was GT3. So you get the idea. It's like F2, F3. It's a little bit different, but of course, the one thing you want at a 24-hour race, or these GTE cars tend to race at very, very difficult tracks. They race at Spa, Silverstone, and in the States they race at places like Sebring and Daytona. And these tracks aren't necessarily Formula One tracks in some places, even Le Mans. It's very bumpy, it's very difficult. What you need there above all else, especially for a professional driver, is stability. And these cars generally tend to have
endurance.
so they generally tend to be quote unquote a little bit easier to drive at 90%. Obviously, to get it to 100%, you do need to be a pro driver. Whereas in a GT3 car, it's seat time that's the most important and critical factor. There's a lot more freedom when it comes to driver aids in GT3. So you have ABS and things like that, which you're not allowed to have in GTE, or not allowed to anymore. I'm not too sure if they've updated that, but in any case, it's easier to try and extract the most out of the GT3 car, but at the same time, it's harder to do a stint in an endurance race in a GT3 car, because near the end, because you don't have that downforce, even though you have the driver aids, the car starts sliding around a lot more, whereas the GTE car it tends to be a lot more stable and a lot more consistent throughout.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I mean, I have barely driven GTEs, but there's a very big change when I used to drive GT4s for quite a long time, and I got used to it. And when you go from a Porsche Cayman GT4 into, say, I don't know, a 488 GT3. So the first thing is that, to me, I felt quite easier to actually handle the GT3. But I think that was based also. Yes, it was faster, but I had a lot more grip as well on the corners. And the GT4 was a little bit like having, how can I say this without the knowledge? A little bit like driving a tuned supercar, where I have the power and that, but it's just not the same for the grip. It's not the same aerodynamic wise when I take the corners. And it's hard. That's why it is hard to drive GT4s at a high pace. So I guess, if you compare that to, GTEs and GT3s, right, kind of the same issue there.
Yeah, I mean, that's the best way of putting it. It's different states of tune, if you will. Theoretically, a Porsche 911 can be built to a GT4 specification. That's effectively what the Carrera Cup car is.
Right.
But you go from that level, or the Cayman, and you move up a notch, and you're into a car that's, let's face it, quite heavily modified, but still a modified car from the production vehicle. The 488 is very clearly a car that's been taken off the assembly lines, modified for racing, and put on the track. Whereas once you get up to GTE, it's almost like the WRC cars. They build those cars from the ground up, from scratch, as a race car. And the level of modification is just that much higher. You can almost think of it as percentages. The Porsche Cayman, I would suggest that perhaps 60 to 70% of that car is still standard, whereas in the GT3 car, it'll be somewhere between 40 and 50%. Maybe in the Porsche, it'll be a little bit less, maybe at most 30% standard. Whereas with a GTLM or a GTE car, you definitely do have basically nothing much the same. So maybe 10% of the car is standard.
Right.
And of course, the problem with the GT car is because it was designed initially to be a road car, it's always going to have that compromise. And I guess the more modification you do to the car, the more specialized the car is, the less compromise it has. So the GT3 car, like the GT4 car, has a lot of compromises. It's very difficult on the limit, especially if you're
Yes.
just about to start sliding. The GT3 car, it has a lot more grip, a lot more aero. I mean, these cars do generate quite a lot of aero, the GT3 cars, so they're still quite impressive in their own right. But once you get back into the GTE category, it's just that next step. It's again, it gets a lot easier, but then again, when you're up into the GTE category, even the gentleman drivers, if you will, are already at a very high level.
Right.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, I guess this happens with with different categories. You can apply this to open wheelers too, and when you start with Formula 4 or even slower classes, and you barely have any aerodynamics, like say for example with the skippy, right, where you learn your basics, but there's nothing gripping. It's all about getting the right line, and also keeping that speed through the corners and not losing it, because you don't have the power to gain it back. And then as you go up, you kind of like move on to F3, where you have a lot more grip, but it's a very different way to drive it too, because you're a lot faster too. So there's actually, I mean, there's good and bad things, in the sense that there's a space for every driver there, and this is why some people love driving the skippies forever. But yeah, it's kind of the same concept, right? How much those aerodynamics actually help. And one thing is to do a lap, and like you said, one different thing is to do a lap on the limit, right? To get the right timings, and that's where it can get tricky with actually both options. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's the best way to think of it from a driving point of view, I think, is with the GT4 car, you get the car sideways, and there's still plenty of time to try and straighten it all up and keep it in a straight line. In GT3 car, it's a little bit snappier. When you get to the limit, it gets a bit harder to control because you're going that much faster. Everything's happening a lot faster. Right. And with the GTE car, again, it goes even faster than that. These guys have to try, and at least in bad weather conditions, keep up with an LMP2 car. So, and they don't have that much power to carry on and try and do that. So yeah, it's like everything else in racing. There is this ladder of progression. The same thing happens in stock cars on the ovals, or Indy cars, or Formula One, and in this particular form of racing, endurance racing, this is basically the class structure. You go from a GT4 car into a GT3 car into a GTE car, and then perhaps maybe you might get a chance at an LMP2 or LMP1 car. Right. And that's the Formula One of endurance racing.
Well, what about the weight? Would it be lighter at GT in comparison to the same model in GT3?
Yeah, I have to check what the regulations are now. I know that when it comes to power to weight ratios, iRacing is very, very close to real life. Basically, it takes less than a month for a change in the real world BOP to go in. The weights are fairly comparable, but the GTE cars, they do weigh a little bit less. But with the GTE car, the main key difference is not just the weight, but the weight distribution.
Yeah.
So in this Porsche 911 we're seeing here going through there, that's I believe Iman Danish. He's in the Class 1 car, in the Class 2 car, the GT3 car.
Correct.
That engine is right at the back in the traditional place of the Porsche, and the fuel tank is very far forward. And so there's a little bit of imbalance front to rear, which most Porsche drivers would know. If you try and be too aggressive in the wrong points, or if you lift off the throttle too aggressively, the car can swap ends on you quite easily. So there's still things inherent with the road car. Any problems that the road car has will be reflected in GT3 racing. The Bentley is going to be very big and very heavy and very difficult to change direction, even though it might have the power. The 488 might be able to get through the corners quite easily, but as you can see, it's limited in traction. All that sort of stuff comes through in GT3 racing, whereas in GTE racing, you're able to build a car that has the major masses, the major components in the correct location, if you will. So with this GTE car, you can see it looks very different, and you can see the big diffuser at the back and everything else. The track of the car, the width of the car, how far the wheels are apart, it's a lot wider than the standard car. So, and even the tires, actually, that's a great shot you can see there of the tires. You see how wide the front of the car is, and how extreme the cutouts are, and the way the car is designed as well. You can see the quick release catch. The shell of the car might look like a standard car. That's what part of the GTE regulations, but it really is built a bit more like a Group C car back in the day used to be. So it's all quick release and everything else. So it just moves the game along. Like I said, a GT3 car is a modified production car, whereas a GTE car is usually built from the ground up.
Ooh, nice information there. Yep. Thanks.
Yeah. Okay, one last question. Do we see GTE cars in non-endurance races? Is this common or not really?
Not really. I mean, it's the clue's in the name. It used to be quite common to have GT2 cars, the predecessor to GTE cars, in sprint races. The Blancpain series used to have categories to GT2 and GT3, whereas now I believe it's GT3 and GT4 cars. But these GTE cars, or the Le Mans GT cars, they're designed specifically for endurance racing. So they have fairly large tanks. I believe they can go, depending on the BOP, which extends to fuel. In GTE, they can have up to 120 liters fuel capacity, which is quite a lot. You can double stint on fuel if you need to, or at least go more than an hour on a tank of fuel. And it also sort of, I mean, yeah, it's so many other different things that it's just built for endurance racing. The car's suspension system is actually a lot heavier, the components, compared to a GT3 car, and also the car is designed almost like a kit. It's designed to be disassembled quite quickly. You can remove vital parts of the car very, very quickly, much quicker than a GT3 car. Or in a standard car as well. So serviceability is a big factor with these cars, and they're designed.
Makes sense.
And effectively, these cars. I mean, the BOP can be a little bit weird, but effectively, these cars are designed for Le Mans. That's the main target for most manufacturers. They always want to win Le Mans. They're even willing to throw away the WEC Championship, the World Endurance Championship,
just to focus on that.
Yeah,
I was just thinking, I was looking at the BMW just now. Carol, perhaps we can go to one of the BMWs. And what a big car, right? I mean, it looks huge. It looks tremendously big compared to the others, and I just can't get used to the grill, the front. I'm still.
It's quite extra, huh?
It's a bit like Halloween, I don't know if there's any BMW designers here, but I don't know what to say. And it's kind of funny because I always liked these BMWs before they went into this things, and this has been carried to the road cars as well, I think, right? Because the new M4 and the new M5, they all come with this. So interesting. It does look huge, and this is obviously, these cars are made to race you, right? Scale to actual races. So this is how it would look in real life too. They do. It looks tremendous. It has a very big, big top speed, right? BM. So
I mean, that's the trick. That's the beauty with the GT3 category, and I mean, I can't get over that.
We can
it looks like
here,
a bus going past the Volkswagen.
It's huge, and the Porsche is a bit small as well, so they look.
Yeah, they look out of place. They don't look like they're going to be in the same category, but like we've seen the Bentley do well in GT3, and we've seen all sorts of other cars do quite well in GT3.
Yeah, the Bentley also a very big car, right? We don't have one here in iRacing, but we've seen it in ACC.
Yeah, and I mean that's the thing with the GT3 category, is that it gives so much flexibility to the manufacturers. Yes, you have to race the car as with the basics of the car from the road onto the track. So there's not a lot of modifications you can do in comparison to like the Le Mans cars, but these cars, you can have a lot of freedom in what you can actually run in GT3. So you can have a mid-engine car, front-engine car, rear-engine car. It can be turbocharged, naturally aspirated, and all of them, theoretically, with the right BOP, can be quite competitive, especially over a longer distance. The BOPs for GT3 cars tend to be two sets. So you have the sprint and the endurance, but they do tend to spend more time on the endurance side of BOP when it comes to GT3, at least in real life. I think in iRacing they try and get the sprint
Yeah,
performance as well.
yeah, correct. So nowadays in iRacing, you have all the setups that iRacing already gives you. For GT3 cars, we'll have endurance and sprint setups. But I think just like in real life, and just like the real drivers will be tuning their cars for this race, for a 12-hour race, as in compared to a 45-minute sprint. Yeah, so we'll be looking at just trying to make numbers of how many laps are we going to be looking at. So 12 hours, and we are having around 214s, 215s, maybe 216s.
Yep.
Okay, so we're and we're gonna have 8 stints. Well, we don't know. Depends on their strategy to lap, but I mean the full fuel tank.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't have the numbers with me now. It'd be interesting to know what's the consumption per lap for those GTs.
Yeah, just off the top of my head, I'm pretty sure the GTE cars might have a bit more fuel consumption, just purely by the fact that you can put more fuel in them usually. However, of course, I've been out of the loop a little bit this year, so I don't know if they've changed that, giving them smaller fuel tanks, because that could be also a thing. They're always adjusting the GTE class. But as you can see here, Iman Danish getting really racy with Taufik there. This is the lead of Class 2 right now. Of course, they are practicing for the race effectively, but it's nice to do it over a race format so you can really, really tell what the other drivers are doing around you. But in any case, yeah, I'm going to guess that 20 minutes, 10 laps. This includes the start of the race, which is always slower than most of the other laps. But we could use that as a bit of a rough guide. Maybe between 28 to 30 laps per hour. So we might see 300 and what would that be? Maybe 350.
Almost 400 laps. Yeah. So we'll be looking at perhaps, I mean, a stint should be just over the 45 minutes, perhaps.
Mm-hmm.
Perhaps an hour or even more than an hour. The GTs, I'm really not sure on the GT fuel tank consumption.
The GTEs tend to be able to do an hour at Le Mans, but of course Le Mans is a very different track from Spa when it comes to the fuel consumption. And like I said, the BOP and the stint lengths are always set for the GTE cars at Le Mans.
There you go. We see Danny's about to make the move now.
Yeah, coming down side by side, coming to the braking zone. He's
gonna have to wait.
Yep. Definitely a mature bit of thinking there, especially thinking about the endurance race that's to come. You really do have to change you might not have to change the pace, because a lot of people tend to have this idea that, oh yeah, it's an endurance race, we'll have to slow down a little bit. You do have to not push 100%, but the top guys will definitely be pushing at about 98% or 97%. You're still virtually flat out. But at the same time, the difference is in the racecraft. You have the time, so you can try and pick your moments. And,
I was about to say, yeah, picking the right moments will be the key, right? You have so long to go, and you don't want to make a mistake that is going to cost you a big amount of time on the pitch or even your race. Yeah. So definitely, not change space, like you said. Maybe change mentality, change the way you're looking at the race.
Yeah.
There are gonna be incidents, just like in any race. Hopefully, we won't see what we just saw today.
Yeah, that was a bit frightening there for our guys from the Philippines. There, I'm a big Corvette fan, as you know. I used to work on one, and it would be nice to see them actually race that that Corvette.
Yeah, we don't cover them a lot either because we normally do GT3s and
Yeah.
there is a Corvette GT3, I think. Nobody really uses anymore. It's a very old version
Yeah.
that we have in iRacing. So today I read actually so we'll be seeing rain coming next year to iRacing.
Mm.
And let's see what happens. I think they're gonna need a fairly big patch to not just the effect of the rain, but more importantly, the how it's gonna modify your gameplay, right?
Yeah.
And whether they can make that as accurate as possible. And a lot of discussions at the moment whether this can go very well or very wrong. Yeah, especially when you are fighting competitive in iRacing for the points, and
Yeah.
it's already hard, not to have incidents. So we could, there's a lot of rookies as well. There's a lot of new people into iRacing that they were not there before. So iRacing has basically they have about 7 to 8 times the amount of users they had 2 years ago.
Yeah. It's incredible, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit of part of this worldwide pandemic we've been through, and the fact that many people, perhaps look for hobbies and things to do at home and take a bit more seriously sim racing, and then you get iRacing because that's what you see. They have a very good marketing team as well. Um, so yeah, definitely something has done for those people to join iRacing. However, that comes also with a lot of newbies and a lot of rookies. So on the lower categories, there's been quite a lot of issues. However, now it's very easy to find a lobby. So yeah, there's good and bad things, I guess. I think we're gonna be exploring ACC soon, Carol.
Yeah, we are gonna be testing some ACC. We're gonna do some ACC races with Evan, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. So first time for us. Let's see. I mean, I was gonna say let's see how it looks like. It's just gonna look like GT3, like the races that we normally do. But it's a new engine, so let's just see how it
Yeah.
goes and what's the response. You guys maybe tell us if you want to see ACC content. Yeah. So ACC is GT3 and GT4s, right?
Yep. That's the official Blancpain Endurance Championship, the
Right.
SRO game. Well, I mean, going back to the previous point when it came to the rain, I mean, you and I both have quite a bit of experience in AMS2, a little bit in R Factor 2 as well. I recall that karting in the rain
Yeah.
in R Factor 2. When the rain physics are right, it really is a different dimension to racing. And especially for endurance races, I think it's a fantastic development for iRacing because
A decent, yeah.
yeah, it's a totally different driving style and driving mentality to be able to, especially in heavy rain conditions, to try and train yourself to actually drive off the racing line,
Yes.
to try and find the grip and car control and things like that. And even then, your racecraft has to be really sharp because everything almost happens with double the distance, if you will. So it'll be interesting to see how they implement it. Perhaps they might need, I don't know, a different point system or different incident point ratings, perhaps in the rain, things like that. Perhaps there would be a difference there. But then again, when it comes to racing, you are given the conditions you have ahead of you.
Yes.
So it'll be interesting to see how they pull it off.
Yeah, I think that's what we're looking for as well. As simulators that can actually replicate reality, and it's not just rain, but then in a real scenario, it can rain and then it can stop, and then when you go to pitch, it can rain again. So you see, we have this other factor of uncertainty, like we don't know exactly what's going to happen after, and that can also have an impact on the race. So something that we do sometimes in AMS, and hopefully we can do this here in the future, is to have those changing conditions where the drivers are not really sure what's going to happen, especially on endurance races. Imagine seeing a sunny morning and then eventually going into the afternoon and then it rains and then it goes clear again, and it changes the strategy, right, that you have with the team at the pit.
Yeah, absolutely. And it sort of brings out that strategist point of view as well. In a fully dry race, you tend to not have to concentrate too much on the strategy once you've formulated it. there's not a lot of things that can really change the strategy dramatically, unless you've got a calculation wrong or if you had an accident. But when it comes to the rain, you really do have to think on your feet. You have to be communicating with drivers, with teammates. And the key thing is to just get your math right more than anything else, because you're going to get better fuel consumption in the rain. You're not on full throttle as much, but you're going to get worse tire wear, because the only way you can get grip in the rain is to have these really, really soft, wet weather tires.
Right. Yeah.
So that's going to be another whole new ball game when it comes to the endurance races. Is really going to change the way we race. Really, when it comes to when you start seeing the spots on the windscreen, that's when you really try and have to focus on basically winging it. I guess is the best is the best idea. All your finely tuned plans and all of your computer simulations and everything else sort of go out the window at that point.
Yeah.
You just have to see.
You can see quite a lot of people near together here.
Indeed, Class 2 battle is going to be epic.
This is afar, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. So this is the new Ferrari. This is the 2020 Evo, right?
Mhm.
Looks amazing.
Absolutely, I love the detailing on the rear diffuser. I think the Ferrari's got one of the bigger diffusers on the grid, and you can see the detailing and the different materials. iRacing does a great job with the car models there in that respect. Definitely true to life models there. You can see the wing mirrors are different, i.e. the door mirrors that you see there, and also the rear diffuser is a big place where they developed that car. That should make the rear end even more stable than it is now. I know for some drivers at least, that with the right setup, that car is quite stable. It doesn't really have too many vices.
I think so too. I think it's I mean, I've done quite a bit of racing with this car. It is good overall. I don't think I can point a single thing that is best to the others, but I think it does mostly everything well. You know, it has a very good balance of control and grip against the power that you have as well. And it is not too heavy. It is not too light. You know, it's something that I used to drive the McLaren quite a lot, and I do like the McLaren. I like the acceleration. I like the grip. It is light though. It is light. You have to know it's a light car. You have to brake in a certain way, or the car will move around. So I guess it depends what you're looking for. The AMG on the other side, to me at least, it felt very, very solid car, more or less like a BMW, very planted car, which, you know, a bit less agility. But yeah, a little bit for everyone. So to me, yeah, I would put the McLaren on the lighter side of things. And
so yeah, it's going. It is very interesting that GT3. You can definitely tell when it comes to GT racing, or at least tin top racing, if you will, closed cockpit cars. GT3s really are the most in any sim, virtually the most popular type of car to drive, and I think the secret to that is with GT3 you have all these different, very, very different cars in some instances. You know, you've got the Porsche behind there, a steel-bodied car built in the same way that your saloon car outside or your SUV is built, albeit with the engine in the back as opposed to the front. Then that Ferrari 488, which is partially built out of carbon fiber, and it's a space frame design. So very, very different methods of construction, format. You know, the only thing you can't run in GT3 is four-wheel drive. Everything else pretty much goes when it comes to these cars, and what that tends to end up producing is a race series where you're going to find a car you like. You're going to find a car with the handling characteristics that you like quite easily, whereas in a lot of other series that are a little bit more restrictive, it's more a case of, well, yeah, that category of car either works for me or it doesn't.
Or it doesn't. Correct.
Yeah.
There's nothing in between. Yeah. Okay, can see a beautiful fight here. I really like their livery as well. Is that Danny's car?
Yeah, Danish, we're on board with Danish's car there.
Hyperbull, right? Yeah, you got
Yeah.
Hyperbulls. Yeah, yeah, very nice.
Beautiful.
Of that
Yeah.
turquoise. Yeah.
I think we're going to see quite a few of the teams pull out all the stops when it comes to liveries there. I think Hyperbulls is the first one we're seeing right now. A version of the livery that they'll run in the Viper Niza Motul 12 Hours of Spa. And I think, yeah, you're going to see perhaps a few teams actually debut new liveries or adjust their old ones and really look out for it. Of course, all the drivers you see right now are in test mode, so they're not too worried about what liveries actually appear on broadcast. But you can see that the Hyperbull's team has definitely upped their game when it comes to team presentation. And I think we're going to see quite a few colourful cars out there on the grid. It'll be a real feast for the eyes. Beautiful shapes covered with beautiful colours. Well, that's Shami Azri there. He's in the lead of the race in Class 1. First and second there, Shami Azri and Mohammed Mohaimin in first and second place there. Lance Kubala, Aldo Balagulan and Francis Metrillo is in third, fourth and fifth. Unfortunately, they're out of the race. We were hoping to see if they can actually get the cars out and maybe do a few laps, but it looks like the Corvettes are actually going to be competitive with the Porsches when it comes down to pace, at the very least. But you have to admit that the Porsche and GTE trim really is very stable and very user-friendly. There we can see the Danish still trying to get past Taufik Moyin there. It's been a real battle for first and second place, and I suggest that we might see this go on during the course of the race quite a bit between the GT3 cars. It can be quite difficult to overtake these if you have the same pace as the car ahead of you. So you're going to see these multi-lap battles go throughout a course of 45, 60, maybe even 80 minutes before a driver can actually pull or get past. It might happen in the pits or out on track. But it could be like a multi-stint battle when it comes to actually trying to trade positions here, especially if they come in on the same pit stop, on the same lap when it comes to their pit stops there. But these cars, the nice thing about them as well is that they're quite easy to actually battle. Ooh, looks like Danish has lost a lot
I think
of time.
Didn't he run out of fuel?
I'm not too sure. He backed right off there.
But he backed for a very long time. Right?
Yeah.
I saw him backing up because there was no space. I thought he was just giving the space, but now that was 2 seconds over.
Yeah, he was from 0.1, 0.2 seconds to now it's 2.5 seconds, and Wan Li Kui in the BMW, he's caught up right up behind Danish there. So there's something wrong with the car. I'm not too sure whether he's had a misshift or perhaps just running out of fuel, like you said. It's a really bad place to find out that you have less than a lap of fuel left, right at the top of the hill with 5 kilometers to go.
I mean, it shouldn't be just 35 minutes. I'm pretty sure these cars can go for more than 35 minutes. No, maybe something else happened.
Yeah, I mean, there's not so much scrub effect in iRacing compared to some of the sims, so I don't think being behind Taufik for too many laps would have given the car sort of overheating issues on the front tires. But and anyways, with GT3 cars, that's usually not too bad an effect. So I'm not too sure if it's that, or perhaps he may have just made a small mistake coming up the hill, or maybe had a cut track. Very, very strange there. Meanwhile, we'll have a look at Kamal Ali there.
Ooh,
very, very sideways. Yes, Kamal Ali does occasionally go sideways, but perhaps wasn't planning on doing a spot of drifting there down at the Brussels hairpin. But yeah, another car with a really, really nice livery.
Yeah, I was going to say, it looks like a Batmobile.
Yeah. That's the thing. I think people need to be more creative with their 488s. I've seen so many Ferraris painted red.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Wan Kui is now putting the pressure on Danish there. He's kind of looks like he's gone back up to speed. So I'm going to hazard a guess and suggest that he perhaps had to either give up some time or
Yeah,
run out.
I think he probably got a penalty, and he
Yeah.
had to, just decelerate to get the penalty out. I guess I don't know, but that was too long. It was very long.
Yeah, he may have made a mistake as well, accelerating back up to speed, because you tend to go through that Radion section quite quickly. But there is a possibility, of course, that if you serve the penalty and you try and put your foot down and it's in fifth gear, it might be a little bit slow
Right.
to take back up as well. Again, serving those penalties can be a bit of an art in iRacing, isn't it?
Yeah. Finding the right place to do it is very important, and of course doing it on time.
Yeah, trying to do it at the exit of Radion perhaps wasn't the best thing, but then again, that's why we do these sort of test races, because that's the place you really want to find out. If you have to serve a penalty, where do you do it? To me, it would be between the bus stop chicane and the first corner, La Source. That might be the best place to do it, because there's not too much space there, so you're not going into the situation too fast.
So that's absolutely, that's one of the things that I look at. I also look at possibly, okay, so what I do is normally I try to reduce my time in a part of the track where I'm not on a straight, where we have a lot of, the more corners the better, because your average speed is slower and you will lose less time overall than if you try to decelerate on a straight. So I tend to find places where, whatever is the lowest average speed point of the track, I would try to put down the car somewhere there and lose the minimum amount of time if possible. Sometimes it's just not possible to do that.
Yeah, I mean the other places is the chicane as well, near the back half of the track.
Chicanes are perfect to give back the time, basically.
Yeah. But I mean, that's just another facet of endurance racing as well. You really don't want to come across the line without serving that penalty. You really don't want to have penalties over your head throughout the course of the race.
Yeah, I'm not sure what's the limit for this race. Sometimes you have a lap, sometimes you have 2 laps to serve that time. But I think it's within the lap in iRacing, if I'm not.
Yeah, from memory, I believe it is within the lap.
Like say in AC, in our other tournaments, we do 2 laps actually to actually serve that penalty. Okay, so unfortunately, we see half of the field is out.
I guess perhaps a little bit too much aggression here, perhaps a little bit too much of an extreme setup, in some other places, and just making mistakes. But like I said, these test sprint races are just perfect for you to get that out of your system, really.
Yeah, and try new things and find the right balance for the race. Okay, so we'll be having some more tests in the next few days, possibly next week. I think we'll do team tests this time so that they can practice the driver swaps and whatnot.
Absolutely, that would be something that I'd be looking forward to as well, because that's when you really start seeing the teams. How do you say this? That's when you really start to see the team's overall performance come together. It's all well and good saying that Danish and another Porsche driver are both very, very quick, but if they're in the same car and they don't quite agree on setup, that could be a detriment. On the other hand, if you get 2 drivers that on their own aren't necessarily very quick, but they manage to drive the car relatively well with a very stable and very easy to drive setup.
That will make a big difference on total power, definitely, yes.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see how the form guide shakes out coming into those team test sessions. Not too sure who's going to be partnering Iman Danish throughout that. I don't know if he's registered in yet, Alan.
Yeah, we haven't checked the roster yet. We're gonna be doing that soon because, yep. Guys, please register for the race.
Oh yes, we've got loads more slots available. If it's your first 12-hour race, don't worry about it. Join us, and it'll be a fun experience for you guys to try out these GT3 cars for a 12-hour endurance race. And for those of you guys who have a little bit more experience, the GTE cars are amazing to drive if you get them right. It takes a little bit of skill to try and perfect GTE racing, but once you get there, it's very, very rewarding indeed. And I mean, in general, an endurance race is always a very rewarding experience, whether you're in it to try and win it or just trying to finish the race.
Yeah, I was about to say, even if you're a newbie, you don't need to feel overwhelmed. Even if it's 12 hours, you can take it as a good practice with your mates. To do a team race and just have fun. And basically not crashing and being consistent can take you, a very long way on these races. So you could be doing better than you think, actually.
Yeah, that's the key thing. It's not the pace, the lap time that really determines your result. It's just, like I say, it's the stopwatch that counts, but it's the stopwatch in the pit lane that counts. At the end of the day, you don't want to be spending time in the pits. You spend as little time in the pits as possible, and you'd be surprised at how high up the leaderboard you get. And that's really the case. 44 laps have gone. 44 minutes have gone, and it's 20 laps have gone as well. So I think we'll see Shami Azri either take this lap or the next lap. I believe it's going to be this lap. I don't think he's going to be able to get it.
Yeah, this is the final lap for Shami.
Yeah.
So congratulations there. He's definitely really in tune with that Porsche. He's not put a step wrong so far throughout the course of the race. And just going back to the liveries, that is a really quite a striking livery, isn't it?
Yeah, beautiful, pink and green.
Yeah, you wouldn't think that those colors work together, but they just do in that sense. Meanwhile, Danish has managed to get some pace from somewhere. He's actually overtaken Taufik.
Yeah.
So we just missed that.
Last lap, yeah.
Yeah, that's going to be quite an impressive deal indeed. So I believe they're going to actually have to go through La Source is technically... Oh yeah, it is technically the first corner. So Shami Azri has crossed the line there. And Mohammed Mohaimin will be the second car home. First and second place in Class 1. That's for the GTE cars there. And Class 2, I believe it will go to Muhammad Iman Danish there in the Porsche. Although Taufik Moyen really did prove that the Ferrari has a good chance around here at Spa. So I think it's going to be a battle between the Porsche drivers and the Ferrari drivers up there.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, he's done a great race. He's been pulling the GT3 since the beginning of the race, and you can see Danish at the end overtaking him. So yeah, well done to Danish too, waiting for the right moment to attack, even though there was that little issue before.
Mm-hmm. But again, that is endurance, GT racing and endurance racing in a nutshell. You just have to wait for the right moment to attack. It's not like sprint racing where you've only got 10 laps and you have to try and find a way past the guy somehow. Here, you've got a little bit of time, even these 45-minute races, to just plan it out, plan the race strategy out, and make sure it comes towards you in the end.
Okay, so we see a fire coming through.
Brilliant job there to keep that car in fourth place. He's he's fourth in class and sixth overall. Who knows? We might see him out there and I believe he's under a hyperbole still.
Yeah.
Although we'll get a confirmation of that once we start tabulating all the entries there. Yeah, we have Norihan Suhadak. It's a new name to us here, but hopefully he'll be enjoying the experience.
Great to see new drivers coming in to our
Absolutely.
races. Yeah, that's what we aiming for, right? To be as diverse as possible.
Yeah. And that's the beauty again with endurance racing, is that diversity. Formula One drivers tend to all follow the same path in life, but in endurance racing, it's not often where you see an ex-Formula One driver chatting to a director of a company who happens to be very, very good at driving a GT car. So there you have it. Shami Azri there, he's listed there as Axel Sports. I wonder as he tries to take the car out for a flight. Not quite being able to do it. But yeah, it'll be quite interesting to see how the teams sort of sort themselves out there when it comes through the race. But for now, I think that's going to be it for our stream.
Yep. Thanks, everyone. Thank you, Carol, for hosting as usual. And
guys. This is the results. Yes, fortunate to see the Philippine friends crash out at first lap. So yeah, we'll be doing a couple of these races again. We're gonna test the team driving. So
that'll be next week. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So hopefully we'll be able to see those guys come down. I'd love it if we can get some Corvettes into the GTE class. Those things just look mean as all hell. They're just so much fun to watch in a race there. But for now, that's it. Congratulations to Mohammad Danish there in Class 2 and to Shami Aizan there in Class 1. For a second there, I thought that car was heading straight for me. Do apologize. And special thanks goes out to Viper Niza Motul, Bespoke, Gallery Creator, and of course, a special thanks to all of us and all of us bringing you the race here. All the drivers there, special thanks to them as well, and special thanks to you for joining us this evening. But for now, that's going to be it from myself, Max Palmer, from Javier Alvarez, and Cairo Alan. We'll see you all in the next race. Bye for now.
Bye, guys.
Okay, wait a minute.